And I'm looking at an Alabama team that doesn't know if it's coming or going. And we got to talk about Tennessee. So let us talk about Tennessee. Let's get into what the hell is going on with that offense. Because for the first 3 games of the season, they looked unstoppable. They were moving the ball and scoring on everybody they played, right? Including North Carolina State, who I realize is not very good, but you get my point here, right? It's not Chattanooga. It's not the Mocs. Then you get Oklahoma, who had a defense good enough to stop you doing what you've done to everybody else, which is destroy, right? Just go up and down the field. You win that game 25-15. You take the bye week, and you get an Arkansas team that I've said is better than their record and had played pretty damn good defense and needed some things to go right for them on offense, particularly Taylor Green playing well. And that happened. Taylor Green went 19-26 for 266, and they got enough out of the run game to win that game and upset Tennessee at home. But one of the other reasons why that was able to happen is Tennessee couldn't move the football because Travis Williams was dialed in. That Arkansas defense was dialed in. Now you have Tennessee playing a grudge match against Florida at home, Neyland. It's supposed to be a get-right game. That game goes into overtime, and you're not able to score. Like, we're talking about 17 up against a Florida team that did everything possible to shoot itself in the foot, so much so that there ain't no ammo left in the pistol. You know, like you don't have Grand Merps. You have DJ Lagway out there looking cheeks, and you still can't quite separate from this team. I have to look at what Nico Iamaleava was not doing and start asking some real questions. You cannot have this kind of play from your quarterback, from your offense, and expect to win an SEC championship game, let alone a national championship. Dylan Sampson feels like the only guy over there that you can trust to go get you some yardage. But if you can't throw the ball running this uptown defense, uptown offense you got, uptown being up-tempo, you need to go back to what you can do well. And if that is just running the football and going to play action, does Josh Heupel have that in the bag? Does Alex Glesh? Does he have? Does Joey Hazel have that in the bag? You know, Joey Hazel, man. We used to make jokes about Joey Hazel as a backup quarterback at Oklahoma. And now he is one of those dudes on the sideline, right? Going to be in line for a head coach job. Good for him. You got to ask questions of Tennessee now. And you have to ask questions of Tennessee now because they're going to play an Alabama team who looks about as good as they are, which is not good at all. I don't have Alabama as a top 10 team. I haven't seen a top 10 Alabama since they beat Georgia. And even then, you let a 28-0 lead slip to where you need to come from behind to win it late. And then you gave up 40 to Vanderbilt. And then you damn near got beat by a South Carolina team that has the most college offense that we have seen all year. You got a quarterback that can barely throw the football. You got a running back that they should be handing the rock. And you got a defensive front that can get home, but you can't score and you can't really be counted on to consistently move the ball. South Carolina pissed away an opportunity to beat Alabama in Bryant-Denny. Felt like that's what Florida did against Tennessee today. So now you have Alabama and Tennessee, who are supposed to be using both of these games to get right games for the game next week, with two quarterbacks that don't feel sharp, with run games that feel aight, with some wide receivers that can go, maybe 2 on each side, and defensive fronts that can get after each other, but will they? I trust Tennessee's defensive front more than I trust Alabama's defensive front. But that's not saying much now, is it? You know, like 4 takeaways against South Carolina, and that game came down to the final seconds. Now, I get that one of those takeaways was at the end, but that's still 3-1. And Jalen Milroe tried to throw you a pick 6, did not succeed this time. Did end up throwing you the ball again. Did end up giving you the intentional grounding for the safety. Still can't go win this game. Right now, the only team that we can trust in the SEC is Texas. I'm looking for Alabama or Tennessee to try to change our mind about that next week. Because there's nothing that I've seen here that leads me to believe that either one of them is as elite as we thought even 2 weeks ago. Now we are talking about an SEC that is really getting to eat each other alive. And we're back into the conversation about how many teams are going to get in the college football playoff from each of these super conferences. At one point, I'm thinking 4 apiece. Now we're back down to 3 apiece, especially if you get some of these other programs like Iowa State, BYU continue to go undefeated. And at the time we start talking about this, Colorado had a lead against Kansas State. We'll see if that holds up, right? We'll talk about that later. I'm also looking at LSU and Ole Miss being in a dogfight. Who knows who's going to win that game by the end of this show? We'll have a definitive answer later. But I think that while we're talking about this, I think there's room for Ohio State to be a 1-loss, Big Ten champion getting in the college football playoff based on what they did against Oregon today, provided that Oregon runs the rest of the table. And you know what? When you look at Oregon's schedule and you begin to ask yourself, okay, who else do we trust to perhaps give them a ball game? Not beat them, but just give them a ball game. I think you got to go a ways. So you got Purdue next week. That's a Friday game that they're probably going to win. Then you got Illinois. Okay, they could challenge. Michigan, ain't no way. Maryland, probably not. Wisconsin, And then Washington. So you're really talking about one more game on the schedule for which Oregon ought to feel tested. That doesn't mean they can't give away a game, because they certainly tried to do that against Boise State, tried to do that against Idaho, and looked like they wanted to do it against Michigan State if Michigan State can move the football at all, because Dylan Gabriel threw 2 picks in that game. But against this Ohio State team, you put your best football on film. And I think that's what the College Football Playoff Committee is going to be looking at. Whereas Tennessee, Alabama, is that what's going to happen next week? Are you going to put your best football on film against what we think are top 10-ish teams, but certainly top 25 teams, right? We're talking about both of them. I am very much in a spot where I want to see Alabama or Tennessee beat the hell out of one another. I would really love to know that one of those two teams is good. Like, that's what I'm looking for next week. I'm looking for either Nico Iamaleava or Jalen Milroe to go for 300 and 4 TDs. I'm looking for a defense to try to put the clamps down on an offense. I want to know who's going to challenge Georgia and what feels like Texas at this point for SEC supremacy. Which leads me to another conversation that we probably need to have, right? We need to talk about Georgia and Texas next week, because we still haven't really seen Texas challenged by anybody. Now, that might be because Texas is just that good. It might be. It might very well be. I doubt it, though. I really think that if we're talking about Texas being great, they're going to have to beat Georgia. They're going to have to beat Georgia soundly. They're going to have to beat Georgia not like Alabama beat Georgia, but as like they've had the game in hand the whole time. If they do that, they vault back to number 1 because it's Georgia. Georgia going into 2 losses would also throw into flux everything we know about the college football playoff, what it's supposed to be. There's real potential for what you can expect from the college football playoff being absolute chaos if Texas somehow beats Georgia next week. And I say somehow, but it's in the realm of possibility. I'm also looking at this and I'm asking myself, are we going to see a Georgia team that we trust? Because we haven't seen a Georgia team we trust since Clemson. That's the thing that's holding them back. We didn't see it against Kentucky. We didn't see it against Mississippi State today. They gave 300 yards passing to Michael Van Buren. Mississippi State, they got destroyed by Toledo, destroyed by Florida. Ugh. Even if you go for 459 and you Brock Vandagriff, Carson Beck, you gotta make that happen. I'm thinking that Carson could go for 300 against this Texas defense, but I doubt it. Like, Pete Kwiatkowski and that defense have been superb. Like, Pete Kwiatkowski is on my list of guys that I think we got to be watching for the Broyles Award this year, based on what that defense has been capable of, especially where that defense has come from. I am also trying to find out whether or not Quintravion Wisener is really that good at tailback, or if I don't know if, man, like he might really be that good. Maybe Georgia can give us a real good read on that, because that offensive line has also been outstanding. When Quinn Ewers has been sacked, it's been his problem. It's been him not understanding what he sees. It ain't been the offensive line letting people get through.